Welcome to the Simply Financial Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Calandra. Today I would like to talk about a couple of major retirement risks. I want to cover four with you, in fact. First is longevity, second is inflation, third is interest rates, and fourth, liquidity. So number one, longevity. In the United States, as well as around the world, life expectancy has risen dramatically over the last series of years, and I think that is likely to continue. Retirement for many people can last for 30 years or longer. It's especially true if you get to age 65 and are reasonably healthy. The chances that you have a life expectancy greater than 85 years is very high. Of course, nothing is guaranteed. None of us are promised tomorrow. But from a planning perspective, longevity risk is significant. You want to have a plan to make sure that you do not outlive your money. So longevity risk is incredibly important when thinking about and planning out your retirement. Number two, inflation. This is the danger that costs increase, maybe even skyrocket, which can upset your planning assumptions in retirement. And what we've seen over the long term is healthcare costs have experienced quite a bit of inflation. You could even use the term skyrocketing healthcare costs. That would be very appropriate. More recently, in part driven by the pandemic and the related shutdowns, is we've seen a lot of inflation, increases in food costs. Anyone that's gone to the grocery store anytime recently can speak to price increases in food. This also could mess up budgets and put pressure on financials in a retired household. There are other areas like taxes, inflation in housing costs. When I say taxes, it's not just income taxes, but we're in a period right now in 2021 where we're seeing significant increases in residential home prices increasing. And on one hand, for retirees, this is wonderful because their $200,000 home a year or two ago might now be worth $225,000 or $250,000. But what we'll see over the next few years as state and local municipalities catch up to this, the taxes on these properties will go up because of the increasing valuations. In some instances, although it's a blessing to have the property value increase, getting the tax bill for the increased property taxes will not be such a blessing and could mess with people's budgets in retirement. So that's why inflation is the second of the major retirement risks I wanted to touch on today. Third is interest rates. As you know, and we talk a lot about it here at Elliott Wealth Management, we are living in an unprecedented zero interest rate environment. When you look at interest rates in a bank account, money market, savings account, they are incredibly low, and it looks awfully close to a 0% interest rate. So $1 million in the bank today in your typical bank account is going to earn about $1,800 a year. So if you're trying to generate income in retirement in a 0% interest rate environment, it's much, much trickier than it was in generations past. Because if you had $3 million, which I think we could agree is a good bit of money, $3 million, and you didn't want any risk and you wanted to put it in the bank, you might only earn, $5,400 if you put it into a regular savings account. You could eke out a little bit more return if you put the money in the CD. But I think you get my point. You're not going to generate that much in income given what a large amount of money $3 million is in my dopey example. Traditionally, people have put money into bonds because historically bonds have been less risky than stocks and generate good cash flow. But bonds, which are a form of loans, the interest rate paid on bonds is extraordinarily low. It is part of the zero interest rate world we find ourselves in. So the amount of cash flow you get investing in bonds is much less than previous generations, which like the bank account illustration I gave a moment ago, means that you're going to get less cash flow per dollar invested in bonds than you used to. I'm not saying you shouldn't invest in bonds. What I am saying is this 0% interest rate environment is changing the calculation on how much income can be derived from a set nest egg when planning for retirement, and that is a risk for investors. Another wrinkle with this interest rate risk is that the Federal Reserve, their public policy as of today is that they're going to keep interest rates low through 2023. Now, lots can change between now and then, but in a few years, we're likely to enter into a different phase in the interest rate environment where we may see interest rates increasing. And that will present some challenges too, because bonds will often struggle. I'm talking generalities now, and I'm not giving specific investment advice, but bonds will typically struggle in an rising interest rate environment. So interest rates are a tricky part of retirement today, and it is a significant risk. That's why I'm bringing it to your attention today. The fourth of the four major retirement risks I wanted to touch on is liquidity. The need to access capital when you need it in retirement is very important. And there are risks in not having enough liquidity. A lot of financial advisors, brokers out there are fond of using some investment vehicles that limit liquidity because they have surrender charges. And a risk in retirement is that life is going to unfold, and there's only so much that you can plan for. We all recognize that things are going to happen, and if you're going to have a retirement that lasts 10, 20, or 30 plus years, things are going to occur in your life. Some are good, there may be some bad. Some of these changes, some of these occurrences that'll happen in your life are going to require access to money. So liquidity is incredibly important. I find as an experienced financial planner that a lot of the people in my industry are neglectful in accounting for liquidity, and too often they tie a lot of their clients' money up, and that will sometimes, when stuff happens, create big problems for retirees. As an example, I recently had a meeting with a client. Actually, it was a potential client, to be accurate. And they had dealt with a firm. It's a, household name brand, but all of their money was tied up in an account that had an 8-year surrender charge, meaning that they could not access much, if any, of that money for 8 years. And the person I was speaking to had a clear need for money prior to the 8 years, but they were sort of tied up in knots with this investment vehicle that was sold to them. And so when I do planning and work with clients, I want to be very mindful of this risk. We want to make sure that we have a surplus of liquidity. We want to have lots of flexibility because we can only plan for so much. Life's going to happen, and when people need money, they want to have access to their money, very, very reasonable, and they want to have access to the money without penalties. So the fourth risk is liquidity risk. We want to maximize flexibility to overcome this risk of not having money available to us without penalties should we need it. Sometimes that need may come out of left field. So the four major retirement risks: longevity, inflation, interest rates, liquidity. A proper financial plan that is thought out well, implemented wisely, and then monitored along the way so that it could be updated and edited as circumstances change is incredibly important, so that you could increase the chances that you have a secure financial retirement, but also a retirement that has many blessings, is peaceful, because the plan will allow you to reduce the stress revolving around money and finances and the markets. That's what we strive to do, as we want to help our clients win with money. Thanks for listening to today's episode. I will be back with you on the next episode of the Simply Financial podcast very soon. In the meantime, please subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, and check us out at our website, elliottwealth.com. Thanks again.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of Osaic Wealth, Inc., and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Please note, the information being provided is strictly as a courtesy. When you link to any of the websites provided here, you are leaving this website. We make no representation as to the completeness or accuracy of information provided at these websites. Nor is the company liable for any direct or indirect technical or system issues, or any consequences arising out of your access to or your use of third-party technologies, websites, information, and programs made available through this website. When you access one of these websites, you are leaving our website and assume total responsibility and risk for your use of the websites you are linking to. Securities and advisory services are offered through Osaic Wealth, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC. Insurance services offered through Elliott Wealth Management Services, LLC, not affiliated with Osaic Wealth, Inc.